Right now, they're acting calm. But inside, they're starting to panic. They're trying to act like they're fine right now. That's the very first thing I'm getting from this Two of Swords. This person may be quiet. They may be distant. They may be posting, working, laughing, distracting themselves, or moving through their day like nothing is touching them. But internally, this is not peace. This is avoidance. They are sitting in a place where they do not want to look directly at the truth because the truth is uncomfortable. And the truth is, you did not react the way they thought you would. They thought you would chase. They thought you would panic. They thought you would soften first. They thought your love for them meant you would always be the one to open the door, fix the tension, explain your feelings, or make the silence less painful. But you didn't. You didn't flinch. And now your absence is teaching them something their ego refused to understand when they still had access to you. This Two of Swords is telling me they are caught between pride and emotion. One side of them wants to keep acting unbothered. The other side knows they miss you, knows they feel your absence, and knows this silence is not hitting you the same way it is hitting them. That is why this energy feels so tense. They are not just confused about what to do next. They are confused because the old version of you would have made this easier for them. The old version of you may have reached out, checked on them, tried to understand them, or gave them reassurance even when they were the one creating distance. But this version of you is different. This version of you stepped back, and now they are realizing that your presence was not something they were entitled to. It was something they were blessed with. So yes, I do feel reconciliation energy here. I do feel regret. I do feel someone wanting to return. But here's where it gets interesting. Before they can come back, they have to face the fact that you walking away changed the entire power dynamic. And that power dynamic is not about control in a toxic way. It is about awareness. Because before, they could feel when you were anxious. They could feel when you were waiting. They could feel when you were still emotionally reaching toward them, even if you were not saying anything out loud. But now they cannot feel that same pull. And that is what is making them uncomfortable. This Page of Coins is showing me something very important here because this is not loud energy. This is not someone throwing themselves on the floor, begging to be seen. This is quiet value. This is steady value. This is you holding your own worth in your hands and finally understanding that it does not need to be explained to someone who kept pretending they could not see it. They thought your silence would be emotional pressure. But it is not. Your silence is self-respect. And here's the thing, that is very different. Because if your silence was punishment, they could tell themselves you were just upset. They could tell themselves you were trying to get a reaction. They could tell themselves they'll be back. They're just mad right now. But this does not feel like that. This feels like you genuinely removed yourself from the place where you were being emotionally drained. And they can feel the difference. They can feel that you are not sitting there trying to prove your love anymore. You are not trying to convince them that you cared. You are not trying to make them understand the damage they caused by over-explaining yourself one more time. You stepped back into your own life, and now they are realizing that when you stopped reacting, they lost the ability to measure your feelings through your pain. That is the part they did not expect. They expected emotion. They expected movement. They expected you to give them something they could read, something they could use, something that told them they still had access to your heart. But this time, you gave them stillness. And that stillness is making them look at themselves. Because what scares them most is not just that you are quiet. It is that your quietness is starting to prove you may actually be okay without them. And that is where the magician comes in. Because this card is telling me you are not in the same place they left you. You are not standing there with empty hands anymore, waiting for them to decide what this connection is worth. You are standing in a completely different energy now. More aware, more grounded, more in control of yourself. And that is what they underestimated. They thought the same part of you would answer. They thought if they stayed quiet long enough, if they pulled back long enough, if they made the space confusing enough, the old version of you would eventually appear. The version that tried to fix the atmosphere. The version that felt responsible for the distance. The version that would rather hurt quietly than let the connection fall apart. But that version of you has changed. Not because you stopped caring, but because you stopped abandoning yourself just to keep access to someone who was unsure how to value you. And this is what they are feeling now. The magician is not loud either, but it is powerful. It is someone realizing, wait, I have more power here than I thought. I have choices. I have tools. I have the ability to redirect my energy. And that is exactly what you did. You took the love you kept pouring into their uncertainty, and you started bringing it back to yourself. You started choosing your peace in moments where the old you would have chosen anxiety. You started choosing silence in moments where the old you would have explained. You started choosing distance in moments where the old you would have tried to pull them closer. And they can sense that shift. They may not have the language for it. They may not admit it out loud. But they know something is different because the old emotional access point is not working anymore. They cannot press the same buttons and get the same reaction. They cannot disappear and expect you to panic. They cannot act unsure and expect you to carry the whole emotional weight of the connection. And that is unsettling them. Because now they are beginning to understand that they did not just lose your attention. They lost the version of you that kept making excuses for why they were not showing up fully. And once that realization starts to settle in, that is when the memories begin to come back. Specific moments, specific words, specific times where your love was right in front of them, and they treated it like it would always be there. And now, with this King of Cups, those moments are not staying buried. They are coming back up, quietly at first. Maybe while they are alone. Maybe while they are trying to focus on something else. Maybe while they are convincing themselves they are fine. But then a memory comes in, and it touches something they were trying not to feel. They remember the way you showed up. They remember how patient you were when they were difficult to understand. They remember how you tried to be calm when their energy was inconsistent. They remember the way you gave them room, even when you were the one who needed reassurance. And this is what I'm getting very strongly from this King of Cups. This person is being forced to feel what they kept trying to manage from a distance. Because the King of Cups can hold emotion, But sometimes he holds it so tightly that nobody sees what is really happening underneath. On the outside, composed. On the outside, controlled. On the outside, acting like nothing is overflowing. But inside, there is feeling. There is memory. There is regret. And they know this was not just about losing your attention. They are starting to understand they lost an emotional safety they did not appreciate properly when it was there. You may have been the person who made them feel understood without demanding that they explain every broken part of themselves. You may have been the one who listened, the one who softened the room, the one who could sense when something was off even before they admitted it. And they can't pretend that didn't matter. They can't pretend your loyalty was ordinary. They can't pretend your softness was something they could find anywhere. Because now that you have pulled that energy back, they are feeling the absence of it in places they did not expect. It is not just the big moments they remember, it is the small ones, the check-ins, the patience, the way you tried, the way you stayed kind even when you were tired, the way you kept giving grace while they kept giving confusion, and now that grace is what haunts them. Because their biggest regret may not be that you walked away. Their biggest regret may be realizing they confused your patience with weakness. And that is why this Two of Wands feels so important here. Because now they are standing at a point where they have to look at what their choices created, not what they intended, not what they hoped you would understand, what they created. And this is where your calmness becomes louder than anything you could have said, because you did not need to argue. You did not need to expose them. You did not need to send the paragraph. You did not need to keep explaining why something hurt you, why something felt unfair, why something needed to change. You already said enough with your energy. And when you stopped giving them emotional access to your reactions, the imbalance became obvious. That is what they are seeing now. They may have been prepared for you to confront them. They may have been prepared for tears. They may have been prepared for you to ask questions, to demand answers, to try one more time to make them understand your heart. But they were not prepared for dignity. They were not prepared for you to quietly choose yourself without making a scene. And here's the thing, that kind of silence is not cold. It is clear. It is the moment where you stop negotiating with someone's confusion. It is the moment where you realize that if someone needs to lose access to you in order to understand your value, then maybe distance is the only language they were ready to understand. This Two of Wands is showing me that they are now looking at two directions. One direction is pride. Staying where they are, acting like nothing happened, telling themselves they still have time, pretending that your silence does not affect them. The other direction is truth, admitting they miss you, admitting they mishandled something rare, admitting that your absence did not make you look weak, it made them realize how much strength it took for you to finally stop reaching. And that is not easy for them to face because your restraint took away their excuse. They cannot say you were dramatic. They cannot say you were chasing. They cannot say you forced anything. You simply stepped back. And now they are standing there wondering if the space they created has become a door they waited too long to walk through. And that door is what this Eight of Coins is bringing up now. Because this is where they start looking closer. Not in a loud way, not in a dramatic way, but in that quiet, repetitive way where someone keeps checking the same thing, trying to understand if something has really changed. They may be looking for signs. They may be noticing your energy. They may be wondering why you feel different. They may be sensing that your life is not sitting still just because they are not in it. And that is what creates the fear. Because before, they may have believed that even if there was distance, there was still a thread. Even if no one was speaking, there was still an emotional opening. Even if things felt unfinished, they could still come back and find you in the same place, waiting for the same answer, needing the same closure. But now, they are not so sure. This 8 of coins is showing me that your healing has been happening quietly, piece by piece, day by day. Not all at once and not for show. You have been rebuilding something inside yourself that they did not get to witness fully. You have been learning how to be okay without needing them to explain why they did what they did. You have been learning how to stop waiting for someone else's clarity to give you permission to have peace. And that is what makes them nervous, because when someone heals, they become harder to control emotionally. Not because they become cold, because they become less available to confusion. They stop needing the apology just to breathe. They stop needing the message just to feel okay. They stop needing the other person to validate what they already know they experienced. And this person can feel that. They can feel that you may no longer need closure from them in the same way. They can feel that your life may be getting lighter without their inconsistency weighing it down. And that creates a very specific kind of panic, because it is one thing to lose access to someone who is still waiting. It is another thing to realize the person you lost may have started replacing your absence with peace. And now that fear is pushing them closer to a decision they have been avoiding. And with this King of Coins, that decision feels heavier than they want to admit. Because this is not impulsive energy. This is someone who is trying to look composed. Someone who may be telling themselves, I need to be careful. I need to be practical. I need to think before I move. But underneath that calm exterior, there is a fear of what happens if they reach for you and you do not reach back. That is the part they are stuck on. This takes me right back to that 2 of Swords from the beginning, because the conflict is still there. Pride on one side, emotion on the other. But now it is not just confusion. It is accountability pressing against ego. One part of them wants to reach out. One part of them wants to say something, even if it starts small. They may want to apologize. They may want to test the waters. They may want to see if there is still warmth in your energy. But the other part of them is afraid. Afraid that you will not respond the way you used to. Afraid that you will ask the questions they have been avoiding. Afraid that coming back means they have to admit they mishandled you. And here's the thing. Wanting reconciliation is not the same as being ready to repair. That is what this person is learning. Because reconciliation sounds easier when it only means returning. It sounds easier when they imagine being welcomed back, feeling your softness again, feeling that familiar emotional safety again. But repair requires honesty. Repair requires humility. Repair requires them to come in without pretending nothing happened. And that is why their movement may feel slow. Not because they do not care, but because care is now demanding something from them that their pride is not comfortable giving. This King of Coins is showing me someone who wants to appear stable, in control, maybe even unaffected. But internally, they know that if they come toward you, they cannot come empty-handed emotionally. They cannot just bring presence. They have to bring responsibility. And that is why they may not rush in directly at first. You may see movement before you hear the full truth. Something small, something indirect, something that lets them check the door before they finally decide whether they have the courage to knock. And that is exactly what this Nine of Wands reversed is showing me. Because this is someone who has been guarded for a long time, maybe guarded with pride, maybe guarded with silence, maybe guarded with this attitude of, I'm fine. I don't need to say anything. I don't need to show that this is affecting me. But that wall is not feeling as strong as it used to. It is starting to crack. And that is why their movement may come in sideways before it comes in directly. They may not open with the full apology. They may not immediately say everything they have been holding back. They may not come in with this big emotional confession because part of them is still afraid of being exposed. So instead, they test the energy. They may view something, they may like something, they may post something that feels a little too specific. They may ask someone about you without making it obvious. They may create a small reason to cross paths or send a message that seems casual on the surface, but underneath it, there is a question. Are you still open? Are you still warm? Do I still have a place here? That is what they are trying to find out. But here's the thing. This is where you are being asked to stay steady, because not every sign of movement is accountability, and not every small reach is proof that someone has changed. Sometimes a person tests the door because they miss the comfort of your presence, but they have not yet fully faced the reason they lost access to it. And that is the difference. The Nine of Wands reversed is telling me this person may be tired of holding up the defense, tired of pretending, tired of acting like they are not watching, not wondering, not feeling the weight of what happened. But tired is not the same as transformed. Missing you is not the same as understanding you. Coming back is not the same as coming back correctly. So yes, I do feel movement here. But the real question is not whether they return. The real question is whether they return with the same patterns or whether they return changed. And with this High Priestess reversed, that is exactly where the truth starts coming to the surface. Because this card is showing me something that can no longer stay hidden under silence. For a long time, there may have been things unspoken between you. Feelings that were avoided, intentions that were unclear, questions they left hanging because they did not want to be fully honest with you, or maybe even with themselves. But now, the silence is not protecting them anymore. It is revealing them. And that is why reconciliation energy feels present, but it also feels serious because you are not being asked to forget what you learned just because this person misses you. You are not being asked to abandon your standards because someone suddenly realizes your absence hurts. You are not being asked to reopen the door just because they are uncomfortable with the consequences of their own distance. And here's the thing. There is a difference between someone coming back because they are lonely and someone coming back because they finally understand the value of what they damaged. Loneliness wants comfort. Accountability wants repair. Loneliness says, I miss how you made me feel. Accountability says, I understand what I did, and I know I cannot come back the same way. That is the difference you are being asked to notice, because your absence may have taught them your value, but your boundaries are what will teach them responsibility. And this is not about punishing them. It is about protecting the version of you that fought so hard to find peace again. The High Priestess reversed is telling me that you already know more than you sometimes give yourself credit for. You know when something feels sincere. You know when someone is just testing the waters. You know when words sound good, but the energy behind them still feels unfinished. So if they come back, you do not have to rush. You do not have to prove that you are healed by being endlessly available. You do not have to confuse forgiveness with immediate access, because the power is no longer in whether they want to return. The power is in your discernment. The power is in knowing that the door can exist without being wide open. And your final power is not in shutting it forever. It is in deciding who is actually ready to walk through it. And that is what this Five of Wands reversed is bringing everything back to. Because the conflict is no longer being fed. The tension that used to pull you in, the confusion that used to make you explain yourself, the emotional back and forth that used to keep you attached to their uncertainty, you are not holding that same wand anymore. You put it down. And that changed everything, because before, maybe they could count on the struggle. They could count on the reaction. They could count on you caring so much that you would step into the chaos just to try to restore peace between you. But now, the chaos has nowhere to land. You are not fighting for a place in someone's life where your value should have already been clear. You are not competing with their pride. You are not competing with their silence. You are not competing with their fear of being vulnerable. And this is why your energy feels so different now. You did not win because they want to come back. You already won when you stopped losing yourself trying to make them stay. That is what they are feeling. They are feeling the absence of your effort, the absence of your emotional labor, the absence of the part of you that kept trying to make the connection easier for them while making it heavier for yourself. And now they have to sit with that. They have to sit with the fact that you did not flinch. You did not chase the noise. You did not step back into the same cycle just because it called your name. And if reconciliation happens, it cannot happen inside that old pattern. It has to meet the version of you who knows better now. The version of you who can forgive without forgetting yourself. The version of you who can care without collapsing. The version of you who can listen without handing over your peace. So yes, they may want to return. Yes, they may finally understand what your absence was teaching them. But this time, access is different. This time, your silence has already spoken. And the lesson they could not hear when you were present is the same lesson they can no longer ignore now that you are gone.